Pretty interesting deep dive here. Today, Donald Trump hosted Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House. Now, many analysts are starting to compare the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia and the relationship between the United States and Israel, and which one really benefits American interests first. Take a watch at this introduction when Donald Trump greeted him at the White House. Very lavish, kind of excessive. Gonna forward a bit. There you go. So we can stop there. Donald Trump then also hosted a press meeting at the Oval Office with him today. One of the reporters, actually, very surprisingly, was a Palestinian. And Donald Trump asked her where she's from, and she said she's from Palestine. This is also an interesting watch. Take a look at this little clip right here.
Will there be any joint investment between the U.S. and Syria? And will you visit Damascus?
Are you from Syria?
No, but
Where are you from?
I'm from Palestine.
Oh, you're making a lot of progress, huh? Very good. Well, they like me. The Palestinians like me. The Palestinians are doing very well, actually. I think we're working very closely with a lot of people to make everybody happy, including Israel, the Palestinians, and everybody. That's very interesting.
Palestinians are doing very well, guys. Just for those who don't know, Palestinians are doing amazing right now. They're bombed to smithereens in Gaza. Palestinians in the West Bank are experiencing the apartheid with Israeli settlements up in the hilltops while they're stuck in the valleys. Palestinians are doing great, and they love Donald Trump. So, regardless, despite all of this, one of the main reasons that Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, came to the White House was because they were brokering the deal with Donald Trump, one, for Saudi investments here in America, and then two, because Saudi Arabia is very interested in the purchase of F-35s. So Donald Trump already did promise Saudi Arabia that they will be getting some F-35s from America. Let me just go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can see a little bit more of exactly what's being said. Trump welcomes Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ceremony and a $1 trillion U.S. investment pledge from the Crown Prince, which is a huge number. The President Donald Trump hosted Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House, featuring a military flyover, horse-drawn carriage, yada, yada, yada. And Saudi Arabia announced investments of nearly $1 trillion. Now, here's the thing. During the interview, Donald Trump was actually asked about the sale of F-35s to Saudi Arabia. And what people need to understand is that when the United States sells F-35s to other countries, we're not giving them the F-35s that we have here in America just right off the shelves the way they are. The United States always weakens, makes them a little bit less powerful, not as strong as U.S. military equipment, which makes sense. We're never, even with an ally, you're never going to sell the best equipment you have. You're always going to dilute it just a little bit for a military advantage. Now, the Israelis are asking and pressuring Donald Trump, first off, just not to do the sale in general. I believe it was the Jewish conference or the Zionist organization that stated that they are strongly against the sale of these F-35s to Saudi Arabia. Separate from that, Netanyahu stated that he is hoping Donald Trump will offer Saudi Arabia a weaker and less efficient F-35 than the ones that Israelis have. Donald Trump, during the meeting, he actually stated that he'll see about that, and I know that Saudi Arabia doesn't want that, so we'll see about maybe just them having the same F-35 of equal capabilities, which was a pretty remarkable statement, and I'm sure that was to upset the Israelis. Now, I want to go ahead and just read a little bit more of what this says here. Again, we've seen all of these. We've seen all of this sort of introduction, and the main thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys about is why do we consider Israel such an amazing ally to the United States? Genuinely, when you think about the relationship between the United States and Israel, and you really want to take an America first approach, first off, there's a lot of things that I think Saudi Arabia is incredibly corrupt. They commit assassinations overseas, and they've instigated regional wars for their own interests. So setting that aside, when it comes to America first policy, and you want to have regional dominance in the Middle East, which is what America wants. America wants to have eyes and ears in the Middle East. And for the longest time, for decades, whenever somebody would try to justify the billions of dollars we sent to Israel, you'll hear the same excuse. Well, Israel is America's eyes and ears in the Middle East. We need a base in the Middle East. And Israel helps us against extremism, and we get intel on Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. And Israel is great for intelligence gathering. That's always been the justification, the false justification for why America needs to back Israel. Now, here's the thing. With Saudi Arabia, America gets those exact benefits, minus the fact that America doesn't need to send aid to Saudi Arabia. No money. Saudi Arabia is not a liability using the American military to fight wars overseas. Saudi Arabia is not going to be starting regional wars in Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Algeria, Libya, every Arab country, Egypt. Saudi Arabia has no intent of that. Saudi Arabia, massive amounts of oil, massive amounts of energy into the U.S. energy sector. So when you really think about it, when it really comes down to geopolitically, America wanting eyes and ears in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia can provide that. You think Saudi Arabia would have any problem with allowing the United States to just go ahead and pop a military base there? Absolutely not. They already have. So in what aspect, genuinely, just taking a rational pause here, what can Israel provide that Saudi Arabia can't? Is it opposition to Iran and making sure Iran's not a nuclear power? Well, Saudi Arabia wants that too. Saudi Arabia doesn't want a nuclear Iran. Saudi Arabia has already publicly stated that if Iran goes nuclear, Saudi Arabia will then seek the nuke as well, because of the fact that it doesn't want to feel threatened right at its border. So there's the same geopolitical interests there. What benefit is there to having Israel aside from the Gulf countries? In every aspect, America being aligned with the Gulf countries brings all the benefit without having to pay anything. I'm not saying America needs to now be our greatest ally. Absolutely not. Simply put, whatever America needs from Israel, it can get from Saudi Arabia for free with the benefit of oil, with the benefit of regional stability, with the benefit of investment. Saudi Arabia just investing now, stating they're going to be investing $1 trillion. So the reason it's so important to bring this up is because the entire Israel narrative collapses when they say that they are necessary for America and they bring benefit to America, when you think about the fact that America has allies in the Middle East that can do just that. So if you really want to take an America first approach, and you were the president of the United States, and you set aside all of the cultural wars aside, and you really just thought from a geopolitical standpoint in the Middle Eastern region, which one would be a better ally? What would you choose? What would you choose? The one that has a religious doctrine and a religious fanaticism to have a greater Israel project that plans to bomb every single Middle Eastern country around it in order to expand its borders, aka a country that is going to be consistently pursuing war that you will have to then back up with billions and trillions of dollars fighting wars for what benefit? Who knows? Or the country that is willing to invest trillions of dollars in American infrastructure, that has no expansionist policy that includes taking over Jordan and Egypt and it's expanding its borders. Which one is a better geopolitical ally? The Israel alliance to the United States is nothing more than parasitic. Genuinely, it's nothing more than parasitic. I think that it should be America first and America only. Okay? America pursues policies with countries that it sees as beneficial, and that's it. That's it. I don't see Saudi Arabia, nor could I ever see Saudi Arabia coming to the United States and making it illegal to boycott Saudi Arabia, making criticism of Saudi Arabia illegal, conflating anti-Saudi Arabia with Islamophobia. You're not going to see any of those ridiculous policies. Saudis don't give a damn about that sort of thing. So it's really it's important to talk about this, because the more we start to really dissect the argument for wanting Israel as an ally, the more we start to realize, wow, this entire argument is complete fable. None of it is actually based in any sort of logical and rational thinking. So there's a few articles that I wanted to show you, because I do want to show you what the opposing side thinks to this, because there's a lot of people that have negative sentiment of Saudi Arabia. So I found this article that I also want to show you guys. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Dawn, for those who haven't heard, Democracy for the Arab World Now. This is an organization that I've actually worked with, particularly because, as I've said, I'm Palestinian. I have family in the occupied West Bank. And during Biden's administration, I was actually sanctioning settlers that were murdering and terrorizing my family with the State Department. We were pushing for legislation with lawyers, and Dawn helped me actually implement sanctions and do investigative work on the settlers killing my family. So anyways, Dawn had put out a piece that's pretty anti-Saudi Arabia in that sense. The magical thinking behind a U.S.-Saudi alliance, which is an interesting read. Let me just go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can see that more clearly, because I don't want to make it seem like this is just some beautiful fairy tale. And it's also interesting to see why some analysts believe that it's not just it's much more complicated than what I just said. And the whole article basically talks about, from since Joe Biden's presidency, since the onslaught since the beginning of it, the idea of Saudi Arabia as a strategic partnership with Washington would be amazing, and a Saudi pact that normalizes with Israel, and the subheading of Palestinian statehood, and it goes on and on and on. Now, what it says is that America and Israel engage in the same dynamic to a much deeper and more consequential degree. And basically, it says that forming an alliance between the United States and Saudi Arabia would also further abandon the Palestinians and Palestine by Arab states, which have already cast their lot with Israel and the United States in favor of Palestinian oblivion, by which they mistakenly believe that occupation and marginalization will eventually dissolve Palestinians as a political factor, if not as an actual population. So the article goes on and basically says, because the United States is pushing for the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, and if you guys watched that Oval Office meeting with MBS today, if you haven't yet, definitely do it, because you'll see that MBS himself said they're very open to the Abraham Accords, which is basically they're very open to normalizing ties with Israel as long as they see a viable path to a Palestinian state. So the article goes on and it basically says, if people think sidestepping the Palestinians is going to be a good idea, you're thinking a little bit short-sighted, because the truth of the matter is, no matter how much stability you want by normalizing ties with surrounding countries, you have 5 million people experiencing onslaught and apartheid and occupation, and you'll never be able to avoid that without recognizing those people's self-determination, which I agree with. I think that a U.S.-Saudi alliance definitely should come with Palestinian sovereignty. That's just a necessity. The idea that could happen without that is a little bit ignorant to the facts on the ground. But regardless, it's just a good thinking exercise to see what benefit does Israel actually bring to the United States. It really doesn't bring much, guys. It really doesn't bring much. It's nothing more than a liability. So I'm just going to go through some of the comments and then I'll wrap up this video. There's nothing great about the Saudis. That's unfortunate that you think it is. I don't think there's much. I never said there was anything really great about them, but I was comparing geopolitical partners, and ultimately the United States is going to need some sort of ally in the Middle East, no matter what. And it's going to need an ally in Asia, and it's going to need an ally in Europe. There's alliances that have to be built. So that's really what the point of this video is. We have lots of allies that have signed 0 treaties with the United States. We have 0 such documents allying us to Israel. Israel is such a drain on the economy. It's unbelievable. Absolutely. Does England have kings, queens, princes, and princesses better than Zionists? So I think that's most of the comments here, guys. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will see you guys here in a little bit. Take care.